The fluorescent hum of the office lights finally dimmed as I slumped into my chair for another overtime hour. The city's relentless rain drumming against the window, like fingers tapping on my fraying sanity. Another day blurred into the grind, endless spreadsheets of risky investments clawing at my screen, deadlines breathing down my neck in this sterile finance dungeon. By the time I dragged myself into the sodden streets, my commute home was a haze of crowded subways and flickering neon, leading back to my high-rise perch on the 15th floor of that crumbling 20-story relic, where evenings dissolved into takeout cartons and the glow of mindless TV reruns. Alone since the divorce shredded my social world, I drifted in debt's shadow from a botched business venture that still haunted quiet moments with reminders of failure. And the claustrophobia, that old demon from a childhood locked in a tiny closet amid my parents' raging voices, trapping me in hours of gasping terror. I managed it mostly by avoiding elevators and tight spaces, sticking to stairs even when my legs protested. But tonight, soaked and bone-weary from 12 hours of high-stakes number crunching, the rain-lashed building loomed like a tired sentinel, its creaky elevators notorious for stalling amid residents' groan. Paranoia nipped at me too, fleeting sensations of eyes on my back in crowds or faint murmurs in my silent apartment, dismissed as stress from isolation and buried regrets, like guilt over a friend I couldn't save on that cursed hike, or resentment toward parents who chose ambition over affection. As I stepped into the lobby, the stairs felt like an impossible mountain. Just this once, I told myself, the elevator would have to do. As I pressed the lobby button, the elevator doors slid shut with a metallic groan that resounded like a sigh from the building's decaying bones. The dim fluorescent light flickered above, casting jittery shadows on the scuffed walls, where years of fingerprints and smudges formed abstract patterns that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly. My chest tightened immediately, the old claustrophobia stirring like a beast waking from restless slumber. A suffocating grip that turned confined spaces into personal hells. I tried to distract myself, scrolling through emails on my phone, the screen's glow a feeble beacon in the oppressive dimness. Breathing in slow, deliberate counts. 1, 2, 3, I murmured reassurances. Just a quick ride down from the 10th floor to the lobby, nothing more. But the air felt thicker, heavier, pressing in like invisible hands against my skin, carrying the faint, musty scent of stale coffee and forgotten maintenance. The elevator hummed to life, descending with its usual reluctance, cables creaking overhead like taut strings on the verge of snapping. I leaned against the back wall, feeling the cool metal through my shirt, grounding myself in the mundane. Outside, the city buzzed with evening traffic, but in here it was a world apart, a steel coffin suspended in the void. My mind wandered to the day ahead, a job interview, bills piling up like unanswered demands, anything to keep the panic at bay. Then it happened. A violent jolt shook the car, as if some giant hand had yanked it from below. The lights sputtered, plunging the space into momentary darkness before flickering back to a sickly yellow hue. The elevator ground to a halt between floors 8 and 7, according to the flickering panel, its digital numbers glitching like a faulty heartbeat. My heart slammed against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat resounding in my ears. No, not now. I jabbed the emergency button repeatedly, my finger pressing so hard it ached, but only static crackled through the speakers, a harsh, grating noise like distant laughter filtered through gravel. No voices, no help, just that empty, mocking hiss. Panic clawed up my throat. I banged on the doors with my fists, the impacts sending vibrations up my arms. "Help! Someone! I'm stuck!" I yelled until my voice cracked, raw and hoarse. Silence answered, amplifying the isolation, broken only by the distant hum of the building's ventilation system, like a predator's steady breathing. I paced the tiny space, 3 steps one way, 3 back, my breaths coming in fast, shallow gasps that failed to fill my lungs. Sweat beaded on my forehead, trickling down my temples. The walls seemed to inch closer, the air thickening with a sharp bite that coated my tongue. I clawed at my collar, trying to loosen it, but it felt like a tightening noose. This couldn't be happening. Not to me. Not again. Memories flooded back of being locked in that dark closet as a kid. Punishment for some forgotten transgression. Hours of screaming into the void until my throat bled. I shook my head, forcing the thoughts away. Focus. There had to be a way out. Suddenly, the elevator lurched downward again in a stomach-dropping freefall that lasted seconds but felt eternal. It bypassed the lobby, the panel's numbers blurring impossibly. -1, -2. What the hell? The building had no such levels. Basement parking was the lowest. A well-lit concrete expanse with security cameras and occasional resounding car horns. Confusion twisted into fear, a cold knot forming in my gut as the doors hissed open, revealing a dim, dripping basement unlike anything familiar. Rusted pipes snaked along the ceiling, weeping condensation that plopped rhythmically into shallow puddles on the cracked concrete floor. The air was dank, heavy with mildew and a sharper scent of rust and decay. Deep shadows clung to the corners, swallowing the feeble light spilling from the elevator. And there, lurking in the farthest corner, was a figure, shadowy and familiar, its outline distorted by the gloom. It shuffled closer, movements jerky and unnatural, like a puppet with half its strings cut. As it emerged into the light, my blood ran cold. The face was gaunt, hollow-eyed, skin pale and stretched tight over bones, but twisted in agony, lips curled in silent blame. "You left me," it murmured, the voice a raspy sound from everywhere and nowhere, slithering into my ears like smoke. Flashes hit me like lightning. The hike 2 years ago, our laughter turning to screams as he slipped on the rain-slick trail, tumbling into the ravine. I had frozen, terror rooting me in place before turning and running for help. Too late. Always too late. Mark's body was recovered days later, broken and lifeless. Guilt surged through me like choking bile, a tidal wave of regret buckling my knees. "I'm sorry," I gasped. But the figure only advanced, its hollow eyes boring into mine, fingers outstretched like skeletal claws. I scrambled back into the elevator, fumbling for the close button and slamming it repeatedly until the doors grudgingly, slowly sealed. But the car didn't ascend. Instead, it shuddered and descended further, the panel flickering -3, -4. The descent felt endless, the machinery's hum growing deeper, more ominous, like a growl from the Earth's core. My mind raced. Hallucinations? A gas leak? But the fear was real, visceral, clawing at my sanity. The doors opened to a level that defied logic. Tighter confines, wooden walls closing in, like the childhood closet I'd tried so hard to forget. The space was narrow and claustrophobic, the air thick with the scent of old wood and dust, creaks resounding like the groans of an ancient house settling into ruin. Splintered planks lined the walls, warped and buckling, pressing inward as if alive. From the shadows, twisted figures emerged, elongated limbs stretching unnaturally once more, fingers like gnarled branches grabbing at me, their touch cold as my parents' neglect. Faces materialized, blurred and nightmarish versions of my mother and father, eyes vacant, yet blaming. Their voices resounded in a cacophony, scoldings from my youth, arguments that had torn our family apart, words like useless, disappointment, why can't you be better, slicing through the air like knives. I grabbed a loose pipe from the elevator's exposed wiring, its rusted surface rough against my palms, and swung wildly, the metal connecting with yielding, ethereal flesh. Cuts bloomed on my arms from splintered wood and their grasping claws, warm blood trickling down my skin, mixing with sweat. "Get away!" I screamed, pouring out denials of the pain they'd inflicted, the isolation that had shaped me into this fractured man. Each swing drove them back momentarily, but they reformed, murmuring taunts that burrowed into my brain, amplifying the claustrophobia until the walls seemed to breathe, contracting around me. Desperation fueled me as I hammered the close button with the pipe, denting the panel until the doors finally shut. But the descent continued relentlessly. The elevator plunged deeper into the depths. The panel displayed -5, then -6, the numbers glowing with an unnatural red hue. The air grew colder, biting at my exposed skin, while the flickering light above dimmed further, casting elongated shadows that danced mockingly. When it opened next, I welcomed a labyrinth of corridors, doors opening onto a sprawling maze where floors crumbled underfoot like brittle bones, chunks falling into bottomless pits below. Water rose steadily from unseen sources, icy and brackish, lapping at my ankles, then my knees, carrying the stench of stagnation and rot. It mirrored my debts, mounting bills, failed investments, the financial quicksand drowning me for years. Insect swarms erupted from the walls, chitinous bodies crawling over my skin, burrowing into pores with tiny, piercing mandibles. I swatted at them frantically, their wings buzzing in my ears like a swarm of criticisms, each bite a reminder of squandered opportunities. From the depths of the corridors, amorphous beings chased me, shifting like smoke. Now a leering boss from a job I'd lost. Now a lover who'd walked away. Now my own distorted reflection mocking my failures. Their forms oozed and reformed, tendrils reaching to ensnare me. Claustrophobia peaked as the narrow passages closed in, and rising water forced me to wade deeper. In a panic, I splashed out through the flood, searching for a switch or lever, anything to end this nightmare. My fingers brushed slimy walls, dislodging insects that skittered across my hands. There, a rusted panel, its lever stiff with corrosion. I yanked it, hearing a distant clank, but the beings closed in, their murmurs turning to shrieks. I barricaded myself back in the elevator just in time, slamming the doors shut as gelatinous limbs slapped against the metal, leaving smeared residues that hissed and steamed. The descent became a void, the elevator plummeting into endless blackness, gravity fading until I floated weightlessly, my stomach churning in zero-gravity disorientation. The walls dissolved, replaced by an infinite expanse of darkness punctuated by glowing, ethereal entities, ghostly apparitions that probed my mind like spectral fingers delving into gray matter. They forced me to relive traumas in vivid, looping visions. The hike with Mark, his fall replaying in slow motion, my own cowardice amplified. The closet punishments, hours stretching into eternities. Failed relationships where I'd pushed people away, building walls higher than any elevator shaft. The crushing weight of unemployment, nights staring at eviction notices under a single bulb. Each memory was a dagger twisting deeper, the entities feeding on my pain, their forms pulsing with stolen energy. I battled them with flailing limbs and shouted curses, but my strength ebbed away under the relentless assault. Paranoia screamed that this was a trap of my own psyche, a self-inflicted purgatory manifesting my deepest fears in this mechanical descent. Was the elevator even real anymore? Or had I snapped, trapped in a delusion of my own making? The entities murmured of my worthlessness, their voices a chorus in my skull, urging surrender. Deeper still, the horrors converged into a colossal entity born of self-doubt, towering and grotesque, its body a writhing mass of previous nightmares. Mark's hollow eyes embedded in a face of twisted wood, parental figures elongated into lashing tendrils, insect swarms forming its pulsating skin, amorphous failures dripping like ichor from its maw. It filled the void, blocking any chance of escape, its presence suffocating, the air thick with the reek of decay and regret. Tendrils snaked into my mind, replaying every failure in excruciating detail. The hike, the neglect, the debts, the isolation, looping until I could barely distinguish past from present. But something ignited within me. A spark of defiance buried under layers of guilt. I fought back with something I didn't know I had, ripping at exposed wiring in the elevator's walls, sparks flying like miniature fireworks and electrocuting the tendrils that grasped me. Pain shot through my body, fueling my rage. "I'm sorry, Mark," I shouted, the apology tearing from my throat like a long overdue confession. "I was scared. I ran, but I won't anymore." Defying the parental shadows, I screamed back at them. "You broke me, but I survived." I swung the pipe again, charged with my fury, smashing into the entity. In a desperate surge, I spotted a warped mirror embedded in its flesh, a distorted reflection of myself, eyes hollow with doubt. With a primal yell, I shattered it, glass exploding in a cascade of shards that sliced my skin but destabilized the world around me. The elevator jerked upward, the void fracturing like cracked ice, entities dissolving into wisps of shadow that clawed futilely at the retreating car. Murmurs lingered, faint sounds of blame fading into the hum of ascending machinery. As it rose, the panel flickered to positive numbers. -2, -1, then 1. The ascent erratic, jolting like a heart skipping beats. I pounded on the doors for help, my fists bruised and bloody, hearing faint sirens wailing outside, perhaps rescuers finally arriving. One final claw scraped at the doors from beyond, a last gasp of the horrors below, then nothing. Exhausted, yet empowered. Doubting if any of it was real, I clung to the handrail, the elevator's lights stabilizing as it neared the surface. But the horrors weren't fully gone. Faint scratches resounded in the walls and in the corners of my mind. The murmurs promised a return, waiting for the next descent. As the elevator shuddered to a halt at the lobby level, the doors remained sealed, mocking my fragile hope. I pounded harder, my voice a ragged shout resounding in the confined space, until I heard muffled voices from outside, rescuers, their tools scraping against the metal like salvation's jagged edge. With a wrenching groan, the doors were pried open, blinding light flooding in from the familiar lobby, where paramedics and building staff swarmed, their faces a blur of concern. "He's alive! Get him out!" someone yelled, strong hands pulling me into the open air, where the rain-slicked night welcomed me back like an old, indifferent friend. It turned out the malfunction was real, a cable glitch that trapped me for hours. The negative floors, a hallucination born from spiraling claustrophobia and dehydration. Or at least, that's what I was told. In the hospital, under the sterile hum of fluorescent lights that mirrored my office dungeon, I lay bandaged and battered, gashes stitched, bruises blooming like dark reminders, but alive. The doctors called it a panic-induced delusion, exacerbated by buried traumas, the childhood closet, the guilt over leaving Mark to die on that hike, resentment towards my parents' cold ambition, the financial ruin of my failed venture that isolated me in debt and divorce. For the first time, I didn't dismiss it. Staring at the ceiling, I murmured promises to myself. To seek therapy, to reach out to old friends, rebuild connections I'd let rot in solitude. No more stairs to avoid the demons. I'd face them head on, claw my way out of the high-rise isolation that had become my prison. Days later, stepping into the elevator for my first therapy appointment, the doors closed with that same metallic sigh, the hum stirring a faint echo of dread. I breathed deeply, counting 1, 2, 3, reminding myself of the mundane grind I'd survived. Spreadsheets, takeout evenings, rain-drenched commutes. But as it descended smoothly, a subtle jolt rippled through the car, and in the corner of my eyes, a fleeting shadow shifted, murmuring like the faintest sound in the silence. Was it real? Or just paranoia again? I straightened, heart quickening, knowing the descent could return if I let regrets pull me under. Hey guys, it's Malice here. I really appreciate you sticking around until the end of the story. I'm a one-man operation and trying my best to grow, so if you like what you just heard, please leave me a like. Subscribe if you want to hear more, and please send me any reading requests you might have. I'm always struggling to find new content. Thanks again, and stay scared.